Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla TV, here to talk to you today about S&S lifters and push rods for Harley. Dun, 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 dun. Push it real good. Okay, you should be looking into a set of S&S adjustable push rods or lifters if you want to make accessing your Harley's valve train just a little bit easier. S&S is making a little something for just about every single Harley out there, it seems, from pan on up. Use our bike finder, we're going to show you the stuff that fits your bike. Installation on these ranges a little bit, but for most of this stuff, you're going to be in the 3-beard range. This stuff is accomplishable for the average garage mechanic, but it is difficult, not necessarily a great first-timer job. So let's get right into things. We'll talk about a little bit of Harley history and why these products are relevant to you. So through the pan and the shovel years, Harley's made it very easy to access the valve train. Because Harleys are pushrod engines, realistically speaking, it's the only link that exists between the cam chest down below and then the valves, which are actuated overhead. Now, in the early years, it was easy enough. They included pushrods and tappets that were collapsible enough that you could just simply remove a pushrod after you took the load off of the valve spring. However, with the advent of the Evolution engine, that became an impossibility. They used automotive-style pushrods, just these solid rods, and they were inserted into the engine from up above. Everything got bolted together, and they worked really well. They never went out of adjustment. The problem came when guys wanted to either make performance modifications, or if they'd done something needing repair in the cam chest, it was very difficult to get to there because the whole top of the engine had to come off. Realistically speaking, a lot of bikes, that meant removal of the tank, removal of the rocker boxes, and unfortunately, because the Evolution is shoehorned into a lot of frames, sometimes it included physically removing the engine from the bike. That got to be kind of a pain, so there's ways around that. So unlike factory Evo or twin cam units, these push rods are actually adjustable. And again, this is going to be helpful for those of you who either need to A, make a cam chest repair with the engine in situ or in the bike. It's also going to be helpful for those of you who are effectively changing the distance between your cam and your valve/rocker. So that can happen in a number of ways. Those of you who are running strokers where you actually need taller jugs, that's going to change that effective length. Anybody who's running thinner or no base gaskets in an effort to, again, increase your squish a little bit. Those of you who are running thinner head gaskets. Those of you who have decked your heads. Really, any of those modifications up to and including also changing your rocker arm ratio or even a really deep cut valve can change the effective length of your cylinder height. Now, it might not matter a bit if it's just a little bit somewhere. However, those things cumulatively can add up, and if you make one big change somewhere, it may be enough that your stock, non-adjustable push rods are no longer any good. Enter an S&S adjustable or Quickee pushrod. These things are adjustable for length. Now, those of you who are ordering these are going to see that there's a couple different kit styles here. You're going to see both adjustable and Quickee. Adjustables are great for those of you who have changed that height that we were just talking about, and you need a way to compensate for making something taller or shorter than it already was. However, myself, I really like to opt for the Quickee kits. They're very similar to the adjustables, however, they also allow you to remove the pushrod entirely free and clear of the engine without having to do anything like remove the lifter blocks or perhaps pull the tops. That's not always the case with the adjustable only kits. In my mind, it's worth it to throw the extra couple bucks at the Quickees and know that you can always pull them out as soon as you've relieved the pressure on the valve spring itself. So an item of note with respect to S&S pushrods, you'll notice here this little relief cut in here. This is called a Mae West style end. And this relief cut here actually allows the pushrod freedom from contact with other parts. So if you can imagine this thing in the actual engine, and here's the rocker cup. Obviously my hand is much larger than the rocker cup, but an extreme lift, when the cam is really pushing hard up on the pushrod itself, and the pushrod is right up against the rocker, what can happen is at extreme lift, this rocker, the actual edge of it there, can actually touch possibly the pushrod. On cheaper pushrods, you'll notice that relief cut's not there. It'll just be domed over right into the rod. If that makes contact there, you can possibly have things touching that aren't supposed to touch. You might have some interference between parts. Fortunately, that little relief cut there prevents that from happening in even the most extreme situations. It's a tiny little machining process, but it does actually matter. It's one of those little details that shows that S&S is thinking about you. So in terms of pushrods, we chatted about the pushrods themselves. However, it's not just that easy. So in a big twin Evolution, sure, you just go get some adjustable pushrods, bolt them in, you're set to rock and roll. Those of you on late model twin cams as well as Sportsters, things are a little different. You'll notice over here to my left, S&S sells really a whole kit, and this is going to include pushrod, tubes, clips, the whole schmear. And those of you who are looking at this may say, well, I don't need all that stuff, I already have it. Well, you do, and here's why. If you're riding a big twin cam, you do have access through your pushrod tubes to the non-adjustable pushrods that Harley stuck in there out of the factory. However, what those pushrod tubes won't allow you to do is actually use the full adjustment on a set of S&S adjustable ones. So if you see a twin cam kit, that's for those of you who really need the whole smear. You don't already have the pushrod tubes that are designed for an adjustable pushrod. Those of you on Sportsters, you have a similar case, but not exactly the same. Sportster pushrod tubes on the later bikes, if you'll notice, actually are one piece. There is no room to get inside of the pushrod tube, so you really need to cut those out as well as cut out your pushrods in order to get access to your cam chest without taking the motor out of the bike. Again, these are huge labor-saving opportunities. Keep that in mind. So in the center, you can see really the second half of what comprises the parts of the valve train that move power from down here to up here, and that's the lifter. Hydraulic lifters really do work well. Those of you with the Harley know that you spend very little time adjusting your valves because the hydraulic lifters wind up doing it for you. Really, unless you're on an older shovel, pan, or knuck and you're running solids, your valve adjustment is pretty much taken care of for you. However, these units do fail. I'd like to show you something here. I actually have a lifter out of one of my own personal bikes, and if you look here, you can see all this play in the axle. This thing was ready to grenade. This came out of a bike that was running just fine, or appeared to be. This is no good. About every 25,000 miles or so on an Evolution style motor, you're going to want to think of this as a replacement item. So it's nice that S&S offers these because the factory ones aren't particularly strong. The nice parts about the S&S ones is that the bearing races are just a little bit larger on the axles, and they also hold up better to higher valve spring pressure. So those of you, again, who are running something hot rodded, you have something a little bit modified from stock, you have something that's going to put up with that in the S&S lifter. Those of you who are thinking about potentially going to something like that too, again, it's a nice step up. You can sort of build the foundation of your house before you wind up putting something on top of it. Keep that in mind when you are looking for purchasing. They're also available too for twin cam items. Those of you who are going to be in your cam chest for a twin cam replacement, you know that it's kind of a pain to be in there. It's nice to have an aftermarket replacement part that's going to be an upgrade from stock that's going to give you the peace of mind to know you're not going to be back in there doing the exact same work all over again. Now when it comes to installation, I had said that most of this stuff is 3 bearders, and I'm not kidding with you. This stuff is kind of difficult. You shouldn't be scared away if you're an accomplished home wrench, but this isn't going to be for first timers. You're going to need, at bare minimum for most of this stuff, some sort of a factory service manual. You're definitely going to want to have one handy for your bike. You're going to want some sort of tool for measuring close tolerances. A lot of this stuff is going to be in thousandths of an inch. If you've never adjusted a set of push rods before too, it can help to have somebody handy who's done the job once or twice. This is something I can do on the side of the road with a beer in my hand, but I remember the first time I did these, I was very, very confused for a little bit. It's something that's not going to be covered in your factory service manual. So again, having an old hand around really can help. Don't be scared away though, because these really do represent very, very solid reliability upgrades for your machine. This is something where the work really is going to pay off. You're going to have years and years and miles of reliable service, and you're not going to have to be thinking about the ticking time bomb between your legs as you're motoring down the road. If you can't tell from the stuff I've said, I love S&S products. I use this stuff in all of my bikes. I love the stuff these guys make. They've been doing it for a long time right here in the USA. It's really fantastic stuff. My opinion, however, is not the only game in town. Click below, educate yourself a little bit about some of the S&S products. See what some other riders who are already rocking these in their bikes have to say about them. If you've got a question about product selection or something I didn't cover, definitely get in touch with one of our gear geeks. See us at RevZilla.com. We'll get you somebody by email, or you can always give us a ring. 877-792-9455 is our phone number. I'm Lemmy. I'm out of here.